Welcome to MNA Power and Practice, the podcast for all things MNA. This podcast is a tool for education, information, and making your collective voice heard as members of the Minnesota Nurses Association. Our sixth episode is on the 2023 MNA Board of Directors elections this fall. I'm your host, Lauren Nielsen, and for this episode, we are excited to have two guests joining us who are current members of the board not seeking re-election. First, we have joining us one of the MNA Board's officers to share more about her experience serving on the Board of Directors. Welcome.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Doreen McIntyre. I am a nurse at Children's Hospital in Minneapolis. I've been there for 32 years. I became more involved with MNA after 2010, 2011, when we had the one-day strike in 2010, and then in 2011 when Scott Walker was going after the public workers. Those are the things that motivated me to get involved. The first thing I did to get involved was I applied to be on the ENGW, which is a group that used to be in MNA, and it was the Economic and General Welfare Commission. And then that commission ended up dissolving, and the duties of that were given to the Board of Directors. I was on the Governmental Affairs Commission for a term, and then after that, I decided to apply to be on the Board of Directors. So that is kind of the route I took. I was on two different commissions before I joined on to the Board of Directors.
Wonderful. Now, what role are you in on the Board of Directors, and could you tell us a little bit more about that role?
Sure. I'm an officer. I'm second vice president. As second vice president, that's one of the officers that are existing on the board. It's first vice president, second vice president, treasurer, and secretary, and also Mary Turner is the president, so she's an officer too. As the officers, we have an additional meeting every month where we go over the agenda and make sure the agenda is what we want to have go forward for the board meeting that month. We all also have extra responsibilities as far as we are chairs of different committees that's part of the job of being that officer. So as first vice president, I chair the convention planning committee, and that is part of the job. So if you were voted in as second vice president, you would be the chair of the convention planning committee. First vice president is chair of the CBC. So a little added responsibility, I guess, being an officer. But our vote is the same as any director's vote. We have no extra clout. If we vote yes, it has no added weight than any other director that votes the same.
That's great. Thanks for sharing more about your role on the board. Now, since you're in an officer role, what are the other officer roles that are on the Board of Directors that a member could run for?
There's first vice president, second vice president, which I am. There's treasurer and secretary. And then, of course, there's the president, which is what Mary Turner is right now.
Great. And could you tell us a little bit about what's the difference between being an officer on the board and a director on the board?
Being an officer, you have the same amount of weight as far as your vote in any matters where a vote is needed. But as an officer, you have a little bit more higher level of responsibility. So for an example, the convention planning committee, I'm chair of that. I did not choose to be chair of that. It is part of my role as being second vice president. There are other committees that are the first vice president is chair of, and that's part of his role of being first vice president. So we have certain responsibilities that are part of our role just because of our position as an officer.
Thanks for sharing. Yeah, the distinctions are pretty interesting. How the officers versus the directors work, and then how they all work together. It's pretty neat to see all of the differences and all of the different ways that being on the board can get you involved in the different areas of the union. So go in a little further, could you share a little bit about your experience serving on the MNA Board of Directors? What are there any highlights from your time serving on the Board of Directors? Are there any specific things that you want to highlight about being an officer on the Board of Directors? Things like that.
I think that the best part about it is the camaraderie with other members. I mean, I know that at one point during my tenure, we would have board meetings out of town. We had a board meeting in Duluth once. We had one down in Mankato once, and then invited nurses from those areas to come and join us at our board meeting. So meeting other nurses across the state, it's a little easier when you're on the board because you have more opportunity when they come to board meetings. Everything changed, of course, during COVID. We had quite a long stretch where all of our board meetings were virtual. Was very difficult, just like any of the virtual meetings that anybody else has been on. You know how difficult that is to do meetings virtually. Now we've been having meetings in person again, but they are hybrid so that some people can be virtual if they want to or if they need to, and the rest, whoever can come to the office to have their meetings. We get notified of other unions that are having struggles that we can participate in helping walk the picket line, or the unions will come and they'll say we've been on strike for such and such time and asking for assistance. We like to help out other unions that are going through strikes, because when we've been through strikes, other unions have helped us also. I guess having a voice in where the organization is headed and the things that are going on in the organization. I've particularly enjoyed being on the convention planning committee and having a voice in what kind of education we have during convention, what other opportunities we have during convention, down to the freebie gift that we give to anyone who comes to convention, just having a voice in that. And then I'm also on the state fair planning committee, and that's the same thing. It's very interesting because you decide on what you're gonna focus on at the state fair. What's our story gonna be? Are we gonna ask them for anything? And that sort of thing. So it's a lot of it is engagement with other people.
Yeah, that's great to hear about all of those different experiences you've had while on the board of directors. Now, with the upcoming elections, if you could think back a little bit to when you first ran for the board, what prompted you to run for the board of directors?
I ran for the board of directors because I thought I could have a voice in the decisions that were being made. After being on the Economic and General Welfare Commission and then on governmental affairs, I saw what types of things our union engaged in, and I wanted to be a part of the decisions on what we did engage in and what we didn't engage in.
Yeah, that's great and so very important. Now let's dig in a little more about your experiences being on the board. Is there anything about being on the board that surprised you or that you didn't expect?
I guess I didn't realize the level that, the saying, the buck stops here. That's kind of the board. The buck stops there. And so if anybody is unhappy about something, they come to the board. And, just like anything else, there's always people who are happy and always people who are not happy with the way things are going. And so it surprised me to, now after all the years that I've been on, I'm not as surprised anymore. We have to be able to answer to our members, and that's what we do now.
Yeah, I think with any organization, there are some of those ups and downs and different experiences, but the board obviously is a good place for members to be able to voice their opinions and ideas and be able to have some space there so that everyone can work together to improve things that need improvement and collaborate on different ideas. So, what's one of the biggest changes you've experienced while serving on the board? Do any specific examples come to mind?
Well, of course, the first thing that comes to mind is how we changed to become virtual.
Right.
And we did, over the year, we did decrease our members. I mean, at first when I was on the board, there used to be, I might be wrong on the number, but like 24 directors. And now we're down to, there's only 16 directors. But that wasn't changed on the board. It was changed during the convention, right. Where all the changes make. Because the convention dictates us as a board where we go also. So, and then the terms were changed. They used to be 2-year terms, and during convention, it was proposed that they change to 3-year terms, and so now they're 3-year terms. So those are 2 changes that happened while I've been on the board with the term limits, and going virtual was a big change. There's been a lot of different small things that have gone on, but those are the 2 biggest that I can think of.
All right. Now, why do you feel it's important for MNA members to get involved as a board member?
Well, I think if you're at the point in your career and in your life where you feel like you have the time to devote to being a bigger part of the union, I think it's a good way to go. I mean, if you want to test the waters and go on nursing practice or governmental affairs first to see if you like being more engaged, it is a commitment. You're pretty much expected to be at all the board meetings, and you if you're on the executive board or an officer like I am, you have other meetings that you might have to be on too. And then you have a responsibility of being engaged throughout the union as far as other committees and other actions that go on. It's kind of a responsibility of a board member to be engaged in the union activities that go on for Minnesota Nurses Association.
Next, I have a little more of a fun question. What is your favorite part of being on the MNA Board of Directors? Is there anything that stands out to you? Any memories, any activities, things that you've done over the years that's really been your favorite part of the board?
I think my favorite part is the teamwork that we have amongst each other, and you really get to know when you after the election that January when the new board starts. Some of them you may have never met before. Some of the directors are from hospitals, rural or Duluth, and you don't know them, and just getting to know them, and by the time you've been in as a board for a year with the people, then you feel like you know a little bit more about their lives, and you know the way they think, you know if they're going to vote yes or no pretty much on something because you kind of know their philosophy of things. So that is one of my favorite things about being on the board, getting to know people. And also it's that I feel like I've grown so much being on the board. When I first started, I was a little bit timid and more reserved, and I didn't know exactly what I was supposed to do. And through the years of being on it, I feel like I've gained confidence. I understand what's needed, and I feel like I can speak up and speak my mind, and I can defend our actions when needed, or I can help other union members understand the importance of certain things. So I feel like I've grown as a person through it too.
That's so neat and sounds pretty empowering too. Well, thank you again, Doreen, for joining us today. It is wonderful to hear your experiences as an officer on the board of directors, and we look forward to the upcoming elections this year. And thank you for sharing your experience to help promote the upcoming elections with members this year.
Thank you very much. And I would just say to everybody, if you want to be part of this, the solutions, get involved with the union in any capacity you can. Thank you.
Our next guest today is Gail Olson. Welcome, Gail. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you and your role on the board.
Yeah, my name is Gail, and I work at Unity Hospital in Fridley. I've been on the board on and off for about, I would say, 12 years, and I've had various roles on the board. I've been an officer, and I've been a director. I was second vice president on one of the boards, but mostly in the director role.
Wonderful. Now, what does the role of a director do on the board of directors?
Well, it's an important role. I mean, the board is responsible for the fiduciary responsibilities of the union, and so we have to look out for how we spend our money, how we make our decisions, concerns that come to the union. Of course, collective bargaining is a big part of what we do here, so the board overlooks all that as well. There's subcommittees that kind of watch over different aspects of the union around practice, health and safety. We have a racial diversity committee. There's all kinds of things going on within the union that the board is responsible for looking out over.
Great. Now, could you tell us a little bit more about your experience personally serving on the MNA Board of Directors?
It's been an interesting run for me. We came to the party late. Unity didn't become union until 2006, and so I got involved around 2009, 2010, and I wanted to find out how are decisions made and what influence can I have other than in the bargaining unit. And so I wanted to see the inner workings of it. And so I ran for director first. Actually, back then it was called E&GW. But anyway, it was an interest. I mean, I realized that I had a lot to say about what happens in my union, and I wanted to have a voice kind of at this level. And we can influence things at this level. We speak for all of our members. It's just not about my own feelings about how we should be going, what direction we should be taking as far as organizing or how we bargain our contracts. It's about the members. It's about the nurses I work with and the nurses across the state. And so we are representative of them. I mean, we're elected by all the nurses out amongst us, and so we have that responsibility. So as a director, there's many votes that take place at the board. We do influence how things go, but it should be based on what we're hearing from our members.
Definitely. Now, I think you touched on this a little bit in your answer just now, but what prompted you to run to be a member of the board?
As I said, I had questions once we became unionized at Unity because we hadn't been. And I actually, you start talking to people that you meet at other facilities, and they kind of say, you know what, you might be good on this. Why don't you try it out? And so there were some really good mentors when I came in who kind of helped me along. And I thought, I want to see what happens. And somebody has confidence in the fact that I might be able to do a good job at this. So a lot of it was a couple of different things. People encouraging you and then just wanting to know what happens and wanting to be a part of it.
Definitely. Now, as we're looking forward to the MNA elections this year and starting to promote the elections for members to consider running for the board, let's talk a little bit about some of the types of experiences someone might have while on the board of directors. Is there, anything about being on the board that surprised you or was unexpected for you in your time on the board?
I think, it's almost as if you can be as involved as you want to be. I mean, there's so much going on. You can be on a picket line. You could be going to Duluth to help out with bargaining. You could be meeting with members up there. I mean, there's been several times the board has gone to Duluth or Mankato to meet with members in those cities just to kind of get a feel for what's happening outstate as well. Within the city, as you know, there's always something happening. So you're down supporting nurses at Health East or, Fairview. So there is lots going on. You know, stuff at the Capitol, Day on the Hill, convention. There's so much going on that you can be a part of. And then I know that, some people have a problem with the idea that if you have a family, it's hard to fit all of it in, but it's a forgiving kind of role. You do as much as you can, and but it's important work. So we want new people to get involved. Some of us are getting up there where we're getting close to retirement. We really need to pull in people who have a passion for union work and, really making things better for nurses across the state who are focused on the union, the labor movement. We really need people involved. So it's been kind of a goal of this board to kind of pull people in, get new people involved, and I hope it's working.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. You touched on an important part there as well, that no matter where a member lives, they can get involved on the board. They don't have to specifically be in the Twin Cities or
That's right.
Or
we
something
have people
like that.
We had nurses fly in from North Dakota when we organized North Dakota, and people come up to the city stay. The hotel stay is covered. They come for the board meeting. Usually there's a meeting the night before, some subcommittee that you might be participating on. So it's doable.
Yeah, definitely. Now, in your time on the board, what is one of the biggest changes that's been implemented while you were on the board? Are there any big campaigns or policy changes or even just more technical changes that have occurred while you've been on the board?
There's been a lot of changes probably in the last 10 to 15 years that I've seen. We have gone virtual a lot because of what COVID did. I mean, the union was instrumental in helping to keep the state and the hospital safe during COVID, with the nurses advocating in the hospitals and the support of our staff here back at the hospital. We were able to, affect change and influence the governor in helping us through some of that stuff. Our staffing bill, that has been going on for at least 10 to 13 years, where we are trying to, make things better in the hospital for the patients and the nurses. And so those two things, there's so many things that we had the strike of 2016 for the Alina nurses that we, worked on trying to help those nurses get through that. I was one of those Alina nurses. And of course now the last one that we had, where we were bargaining for so long here in the metro, that will influence negotiations across the state and made, the economics for nurses better. There's been a lot of great things happening. Challenges too, always is, but always, moving forward and making conditions better for nurses.
Definitely. Again, with the upcoming elections, it's important for MNA members to get involved as a board member, but could you touch a little bit more on why it's so important to get involved on the board?
It's so important because this work doesn't happen without you. It doesn't happen without the members. It doesn't happen without passionate people who feel strongly about, the worker. And, the union is there to kind of balance out the scales of power. And, with over 20,000 nurses in Minnesota and Iowa, North Dakota, Wisconsin, and then nationally with the National Nurses United, we are a powerful force, and each voice is so important. So whether you think you can do this or not, give it a try. Don't be afraid. I've had people say, well, nobody recognizes my name. And I'm like, it's word of mouth. You work with a bunch of nurses in the hospital. Don't be afraid. Just put your name out there and see what happens. It's a challenging, rewarding, sometimes frustrating position to be in, but we do a lot of good, and we've made a lot of good changes happen, and we've made a lot of positive things happen for nurses. So I hope people just try it. Don't be afraid.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And before we wrap up here, I just wanted to throw one more question your way. What is your favorite part about being involved on the MNA Board of Directors?
I think it's getting to know nurses across the state, getting to know nurses from other hospitals within the city and then outstate. I've made a lot of great connections with people. If I want to know something about what's happening in Duluth, I know who to contact. If it's southern Minnesota, I know who to contact. And within the city, there's so much networking and good that we can do even in that organizing amongst us. What's happening at your place, what's happening at your place, and we can help each other through all that. That's really my favorite piece of it. Going out and helping people on their strike lines really is a powerful thing for me. I enjoy getting out there and talking about the struggles they're having because they're usually the same that we're having. So here in the city. So I would say that is my favorite part about being involved.
Great. Well, thank you again, Gail, for joining us on the podcast today. And we're excited for the MNA elections coming up. The call for candidates is officially open right now through June 15th. So anyone interested in applying for the Board of Directors, go to the MNA website, mnnurses.org, sign into the Member Center. You can get all of the information there on how to become a candidate for the Board of Directors elections coming up this fall. Again, thank you to Doreen and Gail, two of our outgoing Board of Directors members. And stay tuned for our next podcast episode coming soon, which will be on our commission elections, which are coming up this fall as well. Thanks for listening to MNA Power and Practice. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast through your favorite streaming service so you don't miss a single episode. Want to get in touch? Email power.practice@mnnurses.org for more information.